Yeah, I know, man. The week was stressful, the weekend was stressful, but it's time to rejoice because it's Monday. It's 6 p.m. Central Time, and that can only mean one thing: Chasing Shep's Mellow Mondays. Available on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and ChasingShep.com, baby boy. One time for that mind, baby boy.
Heck yeah. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you all right.
All right.
Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, hell yeah.
Just dandy. Just like the last show was the final show in the old place. Today is the first show in a new place.
In the new place. The nice new little background there to look at.
It is a whole new backdrop. I'll figure out the lighting situation eventually, but for now we work with what we got.
We do.
And who better to help me feel right at home in this new place but Priyanka Bhakta.
Oh, that's so nice.
Welcome back.
Thank you both for having me. And it's a pleasure again. I love chatting with you both off camera, on camera, whatever you need.
You're my mother's favorite episode we've ever done.
Thank you.
Yeah. I feel like a few other people too. They really, just like after we did the last episode with you, so many people were like, wow, that was just such a great talk. Like, I just feel like I needed that,
Well, everyone needs to just talk about their feelings more, honestly. Because I feel like, we're just built in a society that we're just meant to be machines. And I mean, in all aspects, whether you work in a corporate environment, regular environment, store, like you're meant to just be a worker bee.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk, and we're not supposed to have feelings or real emotions or life things happen to you, except for baby, But I think we should talk about people with patience. So you know what? Shout out to all of you for watching my episode. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, I vibe with that too.
Heck yeah. Well, I guess we've, I don't know about you, Shep, but I know that Priyanka and I have both had hectic weeks due to moving. I know you're not moving anywhere, Shep, but
I'm just moving and grooving on my own, man. But
That's
I mean, yeah. The work has been, my job's been crazy this past week, so I mean, I vibe with that. It's been a wild week, but I've been doing just crazy music on my own, so I've been creating my self work.
Nice.
Heck yeah.
Sometimes we all need that. I mean, actually, not even sometimes. We all need that because it's like that creative outlet. I think I remember talking about that last episode of just kind of like finding a healthy way to manage your emotions, or kind of an outlet that you feel like you can control. Because sometimes you can't control the life around you, but you can control the things you do about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's an outlet. Sometimes that's music. For me, it's art, like craft art. Chase, it's for you. It's like these shows, but also art and like things like that. So I think it's so important that you kind of recognize that and focus your energy on that, because you could be focusing your energy on a lot of things that may not be good for you or for others. So definitely.
Very true. Very true. Very true. I've also, I guess, taken the time to just work on some stuff as well, as we've settled in. Tried to tap into that creativity to settle into the new place a little bit. But
your time with it. It'll all happen when it needs to.
That's definitely the big takeaway from this past week, is just taking my time with life. In general, just slowing the fuck down. Even though I'm already a slow moving guy as it is, like I'm just like, you're still so speedy, man. Like, you're always trying to get somewhere so fast that if you just keep walking, you'll get there eventually,
See, I say that. I just told you to slow down, but yet I'm the complete opposite of that. Like I move, like I feel like my brain moves like 90 miles a minute all the time. And I tell other people they should slow down and be more mindful, but maybe I should take my own advice. But I'm glad that, we're all able to kind of sit down and just have this time to chat and talk about some things. Sorry if you heard that. But yeah, I think, this conversation's about grief and loss part 2. And I don't remember exactly the date when we last talked. Do you remember?
No.
No.
Was it
No,
May?
it could have been a few months ago. It could have been.
I feel like that sounds right. It was.
I think
May,
so. I think it was our Mental Health May
Yeah.
lineup. I believe so.
Was I still at my last job? I was like, I could give you a better timeline. But anyway.
It's been roughly 3-4 months.
All right, let's go with it. And I mean, just kind of like where I'm at and kind of what I've learned through my process of grieving, and just kind of talking with Darian to get some notes too about what I wanted to discuss, is just like one thing I guess I want to just mention now that we'll definitely go into it, is that grief is a process and it's not a linear process. And I think, we try to have all these controls over our lives, whether that's, if it's moving, we want to just get shit done, or we just want to move past like a breakup and just move on with our lives, or like these big, like I'm in the process of buying a house and I want to just get it done and call it a day. But it also kind of relates, like all these different things relate to loss in some sense, because the process is not always linear, and it's not. And especially with grief, when it comes to either losing someone so close to you, or even someone that you like relatively had a relationship with it and it impacted you, like losing them impacted you. It's just like a process that it doesn't follow there's no like 5-step ingredient and then you're like, okay, done, moving on with the rest of my life. Like it hits you when you least expect it. And you also kind of, like, what I found is I have to set time aside from it. I'm not genuinely, I mean, some days more than others, I'm not typically a person that cries or is super emotional. Well, when I'm stressed out, that's typically when I get really emotional. And I've just found over like the year, because September will be 1 year since I lost my sister. And it's just crazy to think of the year that I've had without her. Like I switched jobs. I was unemployed for a little bit. I'm buying a whole ass condo and I'm like moving forward with my life. But I feel like there's still this like emptiness that I constantly feel that I have. And, I really tried to understand what that was. I remember, I think I talked about this on the pod last time. I should have watched my episode again before just to get a reiteration of what I said. But, I just remember like feeling so alone, and like I wanted to just get that alone feeling to go away. Like I just was like, you know what? I just want to stop feeling this sadness. And for me, if I tell myself that, I push my emotions away. And I found that like it would show up, that like that sadness would show up in other emotions, whether it was like anger, frustration, guilt, sadness. It was just like a lot of different other emotions I was feeling that all related to me masking how I felt. And it took me a really long time. Like I ended up quitting my job that I had for 3 years because it started affecting other parts of my life. And I never really because I just kept moving forward with my life. I didn't sit down to truly give myself that time that I needed. And honestly, like, I was fortunate enough to be able to quit my job with no plan. And now I'm happily unemployed elsewhere. But it was just like, I needed that time to just give myself time to be sad. I didn't give myself that time to be sad. I would like watch TV shows or things like sad movies, or like even a Pixar movie where I know I would bawl just so I could feel the sadness. And I knew that I was like, oh, I'm crying, so it doesn't matter. But that wasn't necessarily, I wasn't crying for the right reasons. I wasn't feeling those emotions for the right reasons. I was just doing it because I felt like I had to check off a box, or I felt like I had to do this. Right. So I just remember like times where I sat down and was like, okay, I'm going to give myself 15 minutes just to think about it, maybe watch a video, look at pictures, and just truly feel the emotions that I'm feeling. And that was hard. Like I would start crying and then just tell myself like, okay, I'm done, but I wasn't, And I think that really helped me kind of go through that process of like the acceptance, denial, grief. Cause I was going through all those stages, not in order. And then I would think I'd accept it one day. And then I'd go back to being like, no, that wasn't real. And I would get mad at myself thinking I had to follow Like, well, I already accepted it. Why am I going back to being angry? Why am I going back to not believing she's there? Like, but it's because it's not, it hits you when it hits you. I remember when I quit my job, I was talking to some HR lady, and I was talking to her about my reasons, and I took some time off at my last job just to be by myself and not have to focus on my job. And she told me that she lost someone at her when she was 24. Like, she lost her brother when she was a 24-year-old, and it broke her. And she just started crying. And she's like, that was 25 years ago, but that still hurts. And I think we forget when we go through loss, or like when we lose someone that's so important, whether that's they pass away, they move forward with their life, like you break up, because breakups are kind of like losses too, especially if they're very intense relationship, because that's a connection you no longer have. Mm-hmm. And I just remember like seeing her 25 years later, she's like, it still hurts me, because you never get over it, but you learn, I want to say tolerate it, but you learn how to move forward.
How to live with it.
Yeah, live with it. And it's been interesting. I mean, I cry about it a lot, especially since September is hitting, and it's gonna be one official year. But I feel like I've tried to make steps towards my life to honor my sister's memory rather than focus on the bad stuff, if that makes sense. I don't know if anything I just said, I went on like a 5-minute tangent, but I want to kind of ask you two of what you thought of what I said, or if you agree or disagree on anything I mentioned based on your personal experiences.
Okay. No, I mean, I definitely agree with what you're saying. Because I'm the same. The people that I've lost that I really care about and stuff, it's kind of the same. You know, it's like you try to do good in their name and carry on and go forward. And, you know, I've heard a saying when I was a little bit younger that they said that everybody dies twice. They die when they physically die, and they die the last time someone speaks of them, their name, anything. Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of things like that, like just keeping, you know, someone alive. Like on the last episode, I talked about making a song for one of my friends or something, or, you know, I've made stories where characters, I might be like, man, I don't know really what traits to draw from this character. And it's like, oh, I can just draw from, you know, one of my friends and try to imagine where he would be these days in life and what he would be doing. And that's a way of, you know, because like you're saying, it doesn't go away. It'll still always be there. But it's a way to keep moving on and keeps a person alive in some sorts, whether it's in a story world or whatever have you, you know?
Yeah. How about you, Chase? What do you think?
I agree. I agree all around. Absolutely.
I feel like I never stop talking, so that's why
I did, you know, recently I find myself, I've been thinking about my great-grandmother that passed away last year. You know, she'll come up here and there in the strangest places, and like I feel like other people I've lost before, I may have memories with them, or, you know, like with my grandfather, who was the first death I ever had to deal with. You know, that's one of the situations where like things will happen. I'm like, man, I wish he was around for this. You know, like I wish, you know, Belle could have met my grandpa. You know, sort of stuff like that. But like with my great grandmother recently, I find myself missing her a lot. Like, you know, like I accepted it when it happened, and like of course it was sad and everything, but she was very old, and I you know, it was one of those things we saw coming for miles, so it was a little easier, you know. But like here it is like a year later, and for sure, like I find myself especially in the kitchen, you know, like I find myself cooking things and like tasting it and being like, damn, like the only person that ever made this like this for me was my grandma. Like it was a surefire thing. Every time you went over there, just thinking about stuff like that like a lot lately, you know, a whole year later, and finding myself missing her more now a whole year after the fact. Yeah, I mean, grief, it's weird. It's definitely nonlinear. I mean, it can take hold at any time.
And it's interesting that you say that it like hits a specific time of year, right? Like
Mhm.
I realized a lot that there's this thing called like anniversary effect or something like that, where it's like if a specific time of year, whether that's a month, a date, a time period of some sorts in a year, kind of comes around, you tend to get more emotional around those times because you've had something, whether it's traumatic or affected your life in any way. Those memories kind of come flooding back in some sense. You know, I've always had a negative feeling towards September since I was like a younger kid for traumatic reasons. And now it's like another thing to add to the list. And now it's like, it's always like around this time of year, I feel like I'm at my most vulnerable. And especially now, since this is going to be my first year without my sister, you know, it's always been so much easier growing up in the family that I had when I had kind of my sister, because culturally, I think I talked about this before, you know, cultures handle grief and loss very differently. And it's, you know, I can talk as an American Indian woman and I can talk as an Indian American woman, because I like to interchange those terms, because with my parents, I'm an American Indian, but outside of that, I'm an Indian American. And it's like, who do I have to balance? How do I balance my emotions when I have two cultures that clash with how they balance emotions?
Yeah.
Right.
And one thing that I always find myself doing is like trying to look within myself and what I value and what I agree with. Because like I've tried to talk to, like, you know, they always tell you to talk about your emotions and talk about how you feel with like those around you, or like, especially when it pertains to loss, like maybe talking to family members that also know that person, or if you were friends with a group and that was your friend that you lost, like keeping those relationships tight. But your experiences with that person is not the same as experiences you have with those other people, whether it's family, friends, or not. And I feel like there were times where I felt so lonely, even trying to talk about this person to these people that knew this person when they were alive, right? And I think that sometimes goes with like how your grandma, like it will never taste the same.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of just want to talk about those experiences, and thinking of those positive experiences has helped. But it's the aloneness or the sadness that like I feel like I lost my grandmother at the same, like maybe a couple months before my sister. And like you said, it was easier because she was older, she lived a long life, and I have all these fantastic memories of her that I'm going to continue to hopefully share with people that are going to be in my life in the future. Whereas my sister, she was 36 years old. She died because of substance abuse, and I'm not afraid to admit that, because I feel like this whole purpose in life, or honoring her life, is kind of partly like how I want to do it and how I want to continue doing that, because it goes, I feel like I'm rambling because I don't know how to collect my thoughts on this, but I'm just saying, like, it's honoring that person is what I was trying to say. I want to do X, Y, and Z in my life because I want to do it not only for them, but I want to continue making that person proud. And I also want to make myself proud, because it's easy to lose yourself in situations like this. It's easy to get wrapped up in your emotions and your sadness and your overwhelming feelings. And if you don't get sad and you're an angry type of person, it's so easy to lose yourself in situations like this.
Yeah.
And to rebuild yourself is a whole other challenge. And I wonder, kind of in your experiences, did you ever feel like you started to lose yourself, and if you did, like, how did you manage that, before I kind of get into my 35 list of things I went through to see if it worked or not?
I mean, yeah, I know I definitely hit those points sometimes. I feel like I'm constantly losing myself.
Passed away, right? I was like, it doesn't
No.
have to be. It could be like someone that you felt like you've lost in
Yeah.
general, right?
Well, I was gonna pose a question, an interesting pivot to the conversation of loss, about how you handle the loss of yourself when you change into a new person, because that happens all the time. You know, we're constantly changing whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And sometimes you look back and you've changed drastically, or something. You're faced with a change that also comes with having to face loss, like the loss of the self that you knew, and in favor of another one.
So that's a great question. And I definitely will say between now and this time last year, I'm a very different person. But there's also parts of me that are very similar. And I'll explain that a little bit. I think I talked about this on the pod last time. I definitely changed a lot of what I value. And in terms of value, as in what I believe is out there in the world, how I present myself, how I present my relationships with people, and my sense of empathy towards other people. I definitely have realized going to therapy, being in a relationship with a therapist, my sister being a therapist of her own mind, understanding somebody with substance abuse, and then somebody that is lost someone so significant, that changed me entirely because that rocked my whole fucking world. And I had to go through a time in my life, like a period, which is why I think I quit my job, is because I needed to find myself again. I was at a point where I was just going through the motions, but I was not having it. I was angry all the time. I was sad all the time. I was taking it out on people around me. And that's not who I am. And it took a lot of hard conversations to have with, especially Darian, of just like, how do I find myself again? And again, I was fortunate enough to be in a place where I could just stop what I was doing and just re-find myself. And, honestly, like, I can't say I fully found myself because we're always changing and we're always adjusting to the world around us. But it is hard and it fucking sucks because you feel like, you start to figure out, especially we're in this weird age in life where we are kind of transitioning out of like adolescent, maybe college age, or like young child to adult. So you're not only going through that progression normally, but then you add a loss to that. And now you're like, well, shit, now I have no idea what I'm doing with my life at all. I kept thinking I'm too young to go through something like this. I'm like a baby. Who the fuck told me that I could deal with loss? Like, I have to live with this for the rest of my life. Like, I was just going and spiraling. I was literally spiraling of like, now I'm going to get married without her. I'm never I'm buying a house without her. I need her to like see it. I want to know what my niece is doing 24/7. I need somebody in my life that is an advocate for mental health because now I just lost that person in my family. Like, it was all these things that I still feel like I go through. I'm not saying that it's just like they're vanished. These are still emotions I still feel. But I've learned through just giving myself that time to process what happened, but also understanding my own emotions and what I'm feeling to move forward. Because I think that's the only thing you can do for yourself. Because sometimes you'll go into a deeper hole if you don't try. And again, it's easier said than done. Because I was in a hole. I was in a hole for a really long time. I still think I'm still sometimes in that hole. But it's a matter of I keep trying to crawl myself out. And I feel like I am making moves towards that. But I can't expect myself to feel whole in 1 year because I don't think that's going to be true. It still hits me all the time. It's easier to see pictures now. I don't get as sad. If anything, I kind of smile a little bit more because I'm like, I get to see her happy. And that was... anytime I thought about it, I just kept thinking of like her dead body, putting her at the funeral. I kept thinking of sad things, seeing her at the hospital, passing away basically. And now when I think of my sister, I try to think of happy things. I think of when me and her reconnected after a long time and we ate chicken at like a restaurant here in Chicago. And we just went to the park and we talked and I helped her move in. Like, I thought of happy memories and I try not to think of the negative things because they're obviously still there. They're going to be core memories, whether I like it or not, but it's how I choose to remember her that I actively am doing that. I'm choosing to remember her happily rather than sad. But that's, again, it's not an easy process. You really have to go through the bad to get to the good. So I don't know if that kind of answered your question because I still feel like I don't really know who I am, but like I'm trying to figure that out. I got into earring making and I want to start a small business and on behalf of her because one, I was into jewelry because she was my older sister. She was cool. She was always wearing cool earrings. And now if I start a small business in her honor, I want to, name it after her or dedicate like a percentage of my sales to go to substance abuse shelters or organizations, because that is what I can do for her in her honor. I got a tattoo on my leg. Sorry if my legs are hairy. For her and me, because not only am I doing these things for her, but I'm doing them for me. And I think that kind of mindset switch really helps me move towards that linear like steps of acceptance, because I've come to, I struggle with some days where I still believe that she's like alive out there somewhere, but I've come to terms of like, I understand she's not here and she's not going to be here for the rest of my life. But whatever world exists out there, whether that's, the afterlife, ghosts, nothing, whatever, I'm still going to be me, and I still want to be the me that I know she would be proud of. How do I achieve that? And I think that's kind of what I have to just tell myself every day, I sometimes I talk to her every day, whether I know she's listening or not. It's helped me. I started doing art in honor of her name too, and that's really helped me. And just keeping those memories, and I kind of force myself to look at pictures of her just because I want to remember her. I don't want to forget. And having her daughter is also helpful, because her daughter is like a little mini me version of her. But that was hard too. Like I remember I hung out with her once during her birthday, and I was just talking to her, and she's like, "You smell like my mom." And I just started crying. And I was just like, you are just a little version of her. But I also want to be better for her. She's looking up to me as a role model. Not that I'm ever going to replace her mother, but I want to be better for her too, because that's what my sister would have wanted,
Yeah.
So thinking of things like that has really helped me. It's not an easy process. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
I think it might have.
I feel like you did.
My brain goes like 50 miles a minute, like I mentioned earlier, so I feel like I go on a tangent. But I hope it all makes sense in the end. I try to wrap it around. But yeah, like it's the honoring that really, I think, helps. Some people go and do an anniversary visit to a grave. Hindu culture, we don't have graves because we do cremation. So I don't really have that landmark or something I can revisit to remind myself of her. My landmark has to be what I create. It's pictures, it's hanging out with her daughter, it's hanging out with like my thoughts of her, it's maybe sometimes easier. Like I wish I had like a tree or something, and maybe in the future I could plant one on her arm, but it's easier if you have like something like that. Because I think, and I'm just saying that this might be easier. I don't know, because I don't know from other people's experience, but that's what helps people move forward. Because I don't even like saying move on, because I don't think you're moving on. I think you're moving forward. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Definitely. I mean, I don't know. I guess now I'm trying to form my thoughts.
It's a complicated topic, and there's so much that's in it, because like I'm only dealing with a loss of 1 year, and then like my grandmother of a year. And I mean, I've lost grandparents before, and I've lost people that I've known. But when it's a significant loss like that, like it's so much harder to process.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe this speaks to the cultural thing, but with different religions and stuff, like I definitely lean more towards the Buddhist outlook on things. And like recently, even just, outside of death, I mean, I deal with that kind of loss through that avenue, but also many types of losses, even down to just small losses in life. I feel like it's become easier for me to deal with that through that spiritual outlook on life, and just the way I've decided to lead my life the past few years. I really try not to have attachment to things. And I know my girlfriend and I talked about this recently, and I I don't know if she fully understands like what it means to like be attached to something. Like it's okay to care for something, right? Like, but like to have an attachment to something, like then you are now officially setting yourself up for negative emotions if anything is to happen to this thing. Like, obviously you can love and care about something and lose it and be heartbroken, of course, but when you're truly like super attached to something, um, it could ruin your life, and it doesn't necessarily need to. Like we just moved, and to me, I didn't see it as a loss. I mean, I'd been living in that apartment for 3 years, and I was like, I'm ready to
Right.
move on. I'm ready to move forward. I lived there for 3 years. I made a lot of memories. I did a lot of things. Will I miss it? Sure, I guess, but like I've got all these memories, so that's kind of how my outlook on it. Whereas she felt a sense of loss, and I'm like, you've been here for 3 months, like, but I mean, it is what it is. Like, um, she did feel that sense of loss, but she grew attached. She even said it herself, that she was attached to the place where we lived, and I'm like, it's been 3 months, but okay, like if you're
And I
attached
think
to it.
it's so much easier to get like attached to like things or
Mhm.
like
But
not.
that's just it. It's like the
Yeah.
materialistic thing for me. Like since we started dating, has shown me how, not that I'm not sentimental, but how I'm sentimental. Like she's shown me how I am and am not sentimental, in the sense that like I don't hold on to shit like that necessarily. Like I mean, I've got plenty of things I've kept that's like, yeah, this reminds me of so and so, and oh, this reminds me of that one time. But for the most part, I'm very like pro like memories of people, and just like remembering the times and shit like that. uh you don't necessarily have to be a hoarder. You don't have to hold on to every thing and be like, this is a memory and this is a memory. And it's like, because then I feel like, are you remembering this person, at a certain point, or are you just kind of attached to this thing,
And I think that's like it goes into that, right? Of like you can definitely move forward when it's a thing like I lost my train of thought. Go ahead. I was trying to I had a point and then I lost it. But I think you said something. So go ahead, Jay. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think that's anything.
Well, 'cause
He,
it goes back to like being attached to a person, to your memories. That's what it was. It was the memory
Ah.
aspect of like when you think of this person in the best way possible, you
Mhm.
have to like you kind of cherish those moments a lot more. That's where I was going with this. I was like, I knew I had a point. Because yeah, it sucks. She's never gonna be like, in my terms, my grandmother, my mom, my sister are never going to be a part of big milestones in my life.
Mhm.
And that broke me because I'm like, I just want to tell her about things that I'm happy about, that are going on in my life, that I'm proud of, and that I know she would be proud of. And it's like I only have these memories where I can't make new ones, but I've come to accept and be thankful for the ones that I have. Because especially for me, like I don't have any resentments or regrets towards my sister, especially when you're dealing with someone that has substance abuse. It's very, 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 and you lose that person through that mean. I quit drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
That was like one big thing for me. I mean, I still enjoy a cocktail here and there, but I don't have alcohol in my home. I have a different relationship with it than I did prior to.
Yeah.
That was like my own, that wasn't anything like I don't hate people who drink alcohol. I don't do any of that. That's my own personal thing because I want to move forward with my life. And that's not a part of it I want moving forward because I've seen it in such a negative light.
Right. Well, with remembering a person, it's like people that I think back on that, I consider a loss, whether that's, a death or like a breakup or whatever, I can look back on a relationship and it's very easy to just remember all the, the good times, and paint that picture. But for me, I enjoy remembering, this sounds weird. I enjoy remembering the bad things. I don't actively try to remember the bad things, but like it reminds me that like we went through these things together. Like it makes me value these good memories and just that relationship altogether just remembering that it was real, and that these are the things that we went through together. And that's why I think it's important not to paint, like a fake picture in your mind of these people.
Because that's all part of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Like, Chef, I didn't know if you had a comment or anything because I saw you shake your head, but I didn't want to cut you off.
He's silent bobbing it out tonight.
Always. You want to remember them in their whole way. And I think that is adding to the honoring them, because that is your memories. And that's not something you want to forget, because there's emotion that's attached to that, right? And how you can take those feelings, whether that's negative or positive, and move forward with your life so that you don't feel that. Like my point earlier was like, I know some people that may have resentments about what have happened, or like towards themselves, towards the situation, whatever. I don't know. That's just my assumption and my observations. Mm-hmm. But I want to just tell these people that I understand that you feel this way, but there's only things you can do to move forward now. And how do you want to adjust your life so you don't make that mistake again with somebody else that may be important to you? So that, because then, like you may have all these regrets of like, I should have told this person I love them. I should have told them, that I was there for them. You have all these like, I should have. Mm-hmm. And it's so easy to fall into that. I should have done this. I should have done that. I mean, I did that. I still do that. I still feel to this day that I should have done more, or I was, if I had done more, she would have been alive. Or if I had been there for her, she would have, this wouldn't have happened, but it didn't. That didn't happen. And that's something that's part of that acceptance, because you're not only accepting that this person passed away, but you're also accepting your relationship with this person. And I think we kind of tend to forget that how we interact with people, like with one specific person, is probably also very similar how we act with other people, or at least similar vibes, if you will. It may not be the same word for word, but it's how you present yourself to people. And that was kind of what I was talking about earlier, of just like, I realized how I can present myself to people, and I want to be better for myself, so I can be better for people. I'm more likely now, and I know this, I always ask people how they're feeling, or I'm like, how are you doing today? Is there anything you want? And I want to build that connection with people, because not a lot of people do that for other people. Yeah. And that was something that like my sister did. She always did that for strangers. And that was an idea that I want to honor her memory by continuing kind of that active kindness, acting more kind over nice. That's been a big topic of conversation between Darian and I too, of just like, how can we structure being nice to someone and switch that to being kind to someone? Yeah. And I learned kind of that through my experiences of loss, because I didn't really understand that we are just a human being. Like this experience, going through this traumatic experience, taught me that we are fucking humans. We're not just people that are meant to work and not feel anything. We're fucking people. And yeah, that was a really big eye-opening experience for me that I'm still trying to like navigate through. I don't know if that like resonated with you too. I'm just waiting for a comment.
No, it did. If you admire somebody, you should go ahead and tell them people never get flowers while they can still smell them.
Yes. Thank you, Tyler.
Facts on facts, Tyler.
Like, you don't want to live your life with regret. Because you won't, whatever, if there's reincarnation, you only get this timeline in life. And what you do with it is your own. And everything you make is a choice. Yeah. And you may not make the right one, but you can move forward from that decision that may not be the right decision at that time. But how are you going to take that experience and move forward? And I think that goes with loss, because it really does alter who you are, whether you want to believe that or not. It changes your perception on life and how it could just be taken away from you in an instant.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a lot of people, like, and, sometimes you hear stories of people being like, well, this person died and now they have a bucket list they want to complete. And I think that, like that can be extreme, but it's kind of that, like, life's so short. What's the point of trying to follow X, Y, and Z because that's what you've been told your whole life.
Right.
You should live your life based on how you want to live it, not how other people in your life have told you to live it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big change for me too, because I've lived a lot of my life being told by other people how I should be doing this. I should have this career. I should be doing this. I should be making this money by now. I should be following this timeline of life. And that's stressful because not everybody's ready at the same time. And if you're ready, something could be thrown at you and you're not ready, you know? And it's a matter of like kind of what we talked about earlier, of just like slowing down and understanding what you're feeling and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And sitting with those emotions and being like, okay, because I talked about this with Darian. I'm in the process of buying a house and I have so much anxiety around it. But your anxiety is like a way of how your body tells you that, you know, it's like your protective barriers.
Mm-hmm.
Same with your emotions, same with everything. It's to protect yourself. But we kind of just go into, sometimes like myself, I go into action mode when I have anxiety. I'm like, I need to do this, rather than sitting and understanding why I'm feeling anxious in the first place. Yeah. I just go into a problem solving mode because I want it to go away. I want these uncomfortable feelings to just go away. That's not always the case because they could go away temporarily. It's like short-term gratification for long-term satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the opposite. I'm doing, you know, short-term gratification, or what did I just say? Short-term stress for long-term gratification, but I'm doing short-term gratification for long-term stress. Yeah. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy for anybody. But it's just like slowing down. That's what really taught me, is just like we move so fast that because life forces us to move fast, but life can end in a second. So you got to really be being more present.
Part of me feels like that's kind of false. I don't think life forces us to be fast. I think society forces us to be fast.
That's what I meant, right?
Yeah, I think it's more that, especially, you know, with technological advances and everything, and just like the way the world is, it's like everything's just very, very quick, you know. And
you're quick to move on.
That's why, like earlier when I said that I've like slowed down, but I need to slow down. Like, you know, like I've removed myself from a lot of that thinking, but there's still a lot there to where like, okay, I'm slowing down. I'm gonna stop for the day, and I'm doing things I enjoy, right? Like I'm watching a movie, or I'm playing a video game, or I'm reading a book, but I'm doing it to do something. Whereas, you know, it's like my body's killing me. It's like I need to rest, and it's like I'm not ever truly resting. I never actually take the time to rest because, you know, it's one of those things where I've been programmed to believe like, yo, what are you doing? You just laying around, you know? Like it's it's one of those things where it's like you got to slow down and just take in the moment for real. And it's very tricky, you know. It's very tricky. I've always said that, you know, as I've read on like Buddhist and Taoist stuff, like it all sounded so, like when I read it all, I was like, duh, of course, you know, it's all so simple.
It's all easier,
but like simple is not easy, you know. Like it's all very complex because we as humans are so programmed the other way around that you're basically having to completely reprogram your way of thinking and your way of life. But if you're willing to take on the challenge, like the rewards are there for sure.
It's just being more present for yourself, because if you're not present for yourself, you're not going to be able to be present for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just goes into terms of like when you deal with a loss, you forget to be present for yourself because you feel like you have to take care of this other person. You feel like you have to, at least in me, like I felt like I had to take care of other people when I wasn't taking care of myself. And I can't take care of other people if I'm not taking care of myself. Mm-hmm. And I was just trying to move forward with my life and feel like, okay, it's fine, but I wasn't. And it takes a lot to recognize that because we're just such a fast-paced moving society.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta do it. And that means like even just sitting in a shower and just being like, how am I feeling? Like we did check-ins with each other of like, how are you feeling today? Oh, I'm okay. No, really. Talk to me. How are you feeling? Because we don't do that enough as a society. We just play it off like we're always fine. And, you know, that's not okay. We need to be more present for ourselves so we can be present for other people. Because we can't be present for other people or not.
For sure. I've been having a lot of anxiety this past week myself with moving, and there's just a lot of change happening, and I feel like I kind of took a step up for myself when I stopped in Schnucks the other day, and you were at work, Shep, and
Yeah.
I was just like, yo, like this show is stressing me. And it was just something that had been on my mind for weeks. And I was standing there. I'm like, yo, you just need to say something. It's like, you just need to talk about it and you're going to feel so much better. And so I did take that moment for myself to be like, hey, I'm about to lose my shit. So you need to give me a pep talk, a little Shep talk.
Yeah, man.
But and I do. I feel so much better about it. I mean, and it's the classic. If we've had this discussion once, we've had it a billion times of of like, who's the bosses of Chasing Shep? Chasing Shep are the bosses of Chasing Shep. So we get to make the decisions to pull plugs and do whatever the fuck we want. So like, yeah.
Because we don't do that enough. We don't take enough breaks for ourselves.
Well, after we had that discussion, I came home and because like my big thing this week is like, I keep telling myself like, oh, you're just not doing enough. You're just not doing enough. And it's like, I just moved all this shit from one apartment to the other, all but that one day I had the assistance of this lovely young man and Philip Hazen as well. But otherwise, it was a bitch, and it's like we haven't even been here for, we've been here maybe a full week, but we still just moved in a bunch of shit yesterday. So we haven't even settled down at all yet. And I'm like, no, you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough, man. And then once I had the conversation with Shep about the show, we had such grandiose plans for it, which I thought we had managed to get down off the pedestal of such grandness.
Yeah.
But it was still a tall order. And so after we had that conversation, I came home and I made a list of all of the projects that like were truly like are happening at this moment, that are being worked on, that have either dates on them or whatever. And I saw the amount after having like cut down the show a little bit, and I'm just like, how am I not doing enough? You know what I mean? Like I had 13 projects on this list and I just cut some, and I'm constantly like, oh no, you got to do something. It's like, you have 13 projects that you can just focus on right now before you move on to something else. And sometimes just seeing that shit laid out for you, it's a lot easier, and being like, when you have something to gauge your growth off of, that's when you're like, oh, okay, I can chill the fuck out.
No, I vibe with that. I vibe with that hard because I did that not too terribly long ago myself, but with music, feeling like, damn, I really need to get, something put out. I haven't done enough. And then I'm sitting here looking at all this new Halloween stuff I'm working on. Like, I need to throw a new song out. I need to get something. And I'm looking and I'm like, man, if I sit back and I look, it's like I've got a superhero music album with Black Mage that hasn't been put out. I've got the entire Leftovers album that ain't been put out. I just recorded an entire album with Humbly G before he moved to California. That hasn't been put out. And now I've got a whole album, Halloween music that I'm about to put out in a month. So it's like, if same when you sit back and you really look at the big picture and you're like, I've got like 30 plus songs that haven't been put out yet. So I feel a little bit better now about not putting anything out since last April. It's like, oh, that's fine because I've been doing stuff. It's just like the finished product isn't out yet.
And it's knowing your own boundaries, because like that's the big thing. It's easy to keep saying yes to everything because you just want to be helpful and get shit done. But it's not that easy because you got to take care of yourself. And I know we're almost out of time, so I want to be mindful if we have any questions, but I think like the biggest thing I can say for someone that may be dealing with grief or loss and it's been a little bit and you feel like you're kind of stuck is just understand why you may feel stuck. And if you don't want to, like, if you have no idea how to start, maybe writing it down or think of like something that either triggers you about that situation, and maybe art is your form of kind of creative outlet, whether that's journaling, drawing, coloring. I know if you don't know where to start, they have those fun adult coloring books of just kind of like calm, like kind of sitting there and sitting with yourself. because that was something that was that I kept putting off, and I kept putting off, and I just kept getting busier and busier just to keep my mind away. But it wasn't what I needed. So if you're someone that's struggling with some loss or struggling with anything that you feel like you can't move fast, I want to tell you it does get better. And I know I was so pissed when people would tell me that, because it doesn't necessarily feel like it does.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that it gets like, oh my God, yeah, you get over it, because you never get over it. But it is easier to feel those emotions and be happy and celebrate that life. I don't think of it as I try not to think of it as a loss anymore, as more of a celebration of life, that this person I was thankful enough to be a part of and have a relationship with. And how would I want to honor my relationship with them moving forward? Yeah. And just sitting down and understanding you and how you want to honor that person might be a good first step to figuring that out, because it was a good one for me. I just needed to sit down with myself, and sometimes I still do it because I'm still not 100%, but it's definitely helped me want to be better for me. If that makes sense.
Yeah, most definitely, it does. Me myself, I think grief is when you have a lot of love for somebody and you don't really have anywhere to put it anymore. Suddenly it's gone and you don't have any. And I think it does, like we've talked about today, I think it comes out as anger at first, or maybe, like frustration, confusion. But I think, like you're saying, you don't get over it. But I think with time, you learn to channel the love that you had for them into a different place, whether it's art, music, just how you interact with other people,
volunteering. Yeah, it's like anything. It's like putting that energy you have towards something that makes you happy and makes your relationship still alive. Because just because that person's not there doesn't mean that relationship is not there. It's not physically there, but it's emotionally. Like we told my niece, of like, my mom even says this, like, you may not see the person every day, but that person lives in your heart. And I was like, that's such a cliche, but it genuinely is true, because it's taking that connection that you had with this person or something significant and channeling that to continue that celebration of life with them. And it just makes you feel closer to them, even though you don't get to physically be with them. And that's really helped.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my closing thoughts would be that don't fear loss. I guess, I mean, it can be scary, it can be upsetting, and obviously you want to embrace those emotions, but embrace the loss as well, and just see it from all angles, because yes, it's hard and it's heavy, but that's going to teach you a lot of lessons. I mean, any sort of loss in life, whether you lose at something, whether you you just don't succeed, you actually lose a loved one, what have you, you lose a video game enough times, you're going to know that map by heart, and it's just like you always learn something from a loss, and I think that's my closing thoughts on that one. So
it's
I guess
part of life, and it's a tough part of life, but it's how you take it and you roll with it. And it's easy, like I said, it's easier said than done, but understanding how you feel and how you want to take that loss moving forward is honestly all you can do to make yourself feel any better than you may feel before. That makes sense.
And I know the last time you were here, we've rebranded since the last time.
I was just gonna say, Mr.
Mental Health Monday, and now with Mellow Monday always comes out, it comes with a mellow out moment, of course.
A mellow out moment.
Mellow out moment, our segment that we continue to do and hope for the best week to week. But this week, I don't know about you, Shep. I'm feeling pretty good, because I already know, we've already discussed who I am giving the mellow out moment to this week. Property managers need to mellow out. They need to just chill the fuck out.
Yes, they
greedy sons of bitches. That's who's getting my mellow out moment this week. Property managers. Just be nice. You want to talk about being kind? Property managers, mellow out and be kind.
I agree with that. I was just gonna say, we're dealing with the same shit, and you know what? yeah, if you're doing a business transaction, be kind. I know it's a business transaction, but life is a business transaction, okay? Just be a human being for once in someone's life, because you don't know what that person's going through.
Exactly.
Be a fucking human being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mellow, hashtag mellow out moment.
Mellow out moment. Man, I don't even know who I'd give a mellow out moment this week to. I guess off the top of my head, I have to think. I saw something today about the QAnon people, and they were thinking that the vaccination gave nanobots to all of us. I'd like to probably tell them guys to mellow it out a little bit. It's like my guy. Yeah, dude, just
me. I want to know what it does because I'm ready.
It's something. To what I was reading was something about it's gonna. Something within the shot is going to connect with our Bluetooth headphones and put little razor blades in our brains. And I'm like, in a sci-fi book, this sounds pretty fucking rad.
Yeah, that sounds like a rad
Can I listen to
Kingsman movie.
To my elbow?
Right? Yeah. And then so it's like in real life though, I don't think that's the case, my guys. So mellow it out a little bit.
Mellow
man.
it out just a little. And I'll give. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I want to give a mellow out to all of you listeners out there, and then mellow as in like I want to change to like a mindful out.
We've done that. We've done mellow out moments for ourselves. Yeah. Like I'm taking this week to mellow out and just be me and chill.
I need to do that for myself.
Because I was going to throw out an additional mellow out moment for you, Priyanka, as you go on your moving adventure. I know for me personally, as a third party to your move, I'm personally getting flashbacks of the last time y'all moved. Or the time before that you moved. I've been with you through a lot of these, and I feel like you get the same way every time.
Graphene
so just remember how you get when it's all over. And
graphene razors. That's what's gonna cut our brains up.
Honestly, I need that, Chase. I need a mellow out. But yes, it's just a good reminder that we're all human beings and that we all get stressed out, but we have to learn how to handle our stress. And I know Darian's probably just exacerbatingly sighing because he's so over it. Because all I've been talking about is mindfulness, but I don't even take my own advice. So listen to what I say, do as I say, but not as I do.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the truth. Like, a lot of people like at works or anything like that get very stressed out. A lot of jobs around are very understaffed or whatnot still. And I just tell people, like there's only so much you can do within a day, man. Like, you can't beat yourself down. You can't run yourself down. So even in a move, there's only, you can only move so much in a day's time. So, or
but
do
might I recommend that you do move in a day's time, because spreading it out over 5 days will fuck your body up.
It does. And if you have to go up and down some stairs, I vibe with that.
Power to you. Thank you two so much for having me. I hope this was helpful to those that listened and to the podcast. Life is a hell of a journey, and it's a matter of how we learn how to navigate it. And it's just all a process, and it fucking sucks in some senses, but it doesn't have to, because every choice you make is yours, and don't forget. That's my closing thoughts.
We'll have to have you back for a more fun topic sometime.
Yes, please. Nothing. I need something fun like what Darian talked about. What did you even talk about? Like, I don't even know. I want something fun.
I don't know. You talk about something that was fun.
So that would be fantastic. Definitely after I move. So give me like October, and we can talk about ghosts for a mellow out moment. How about that?
Okay.
Well, we're here for that.
Awesome.
Oh yeah. Well, let's go ahead and close it out.
Well, thanks so much, and thanks all for watching. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.